Everyone was silent in Vanzilla. No one said a word, or even knew what to say, during the car ride over to the Prinict. No member of the Loud family knew what to expect when they arrived at their destination. No member had ever had a reason to go to Special Victims Prinict, but this week was turning out to be filled with firsts for the family. After what felt like an eternity, Lynn Loud Sr. finally reached the Prinict and proceeded to pull the van into the nearest parking spot. Once the car was parked, Lynn Sr. let go with a nervous sigh. The last thing the father and the Loud family would want to have fought to do is to bring the son, or any of his children for that matter, to any police Prinict, and it couldn't be for a worse reason. Lynn Loud Sr. put the Vanzilla in park, then turned off the engine. "Okay, everyone, we're here," he said, as he reached to unbuckle his seatbelt. Lana, closest to the driver's passenger side door, opened it and was the first one out. "Wow, this place is huge!" the tomboy exclaimed as she looked up at the towering building. Lynn Loud Sr. exited the van and looked up at the building as well. "Yes, sweetie, it is. But that just means it's filled with men and women who are willing to and have sworn to help protect us. And we need to tell them now more than ever," the father exclaimed. One by one, the other members of the Loud family made their way out of the family vehicle, except for two members, the oldest sibling being Lori and the only brother Lincoln. It may have been a short trip, but it was long enough for Lincoln to lean against his sister and fall fast asleep. Lori didn't even notice until she unbuckled her seatbelt and began to make her way to the exit of Vanzilla. She then moved, and then she felt something shift, and when she looked down, she noticed it was Lincoln. Lori put on a soft smile and rubbed Lincoln's arm. "Hey, Lincoln, I need to wake you up. We're here," Lori said softly. Lincoln began to stir and rub his eyes. "Huh, what?" Lincoln asked as he moved his hands and began to blink himself awake. "We're at the police station, Link," Lori informed her older brother. Did I fall asleep?" Lincoln asked. Lori let out a small chuckle. "Yeah, by the looks of it, neither of us noticed. Normally I let you sleep, but we need to go to the police station," said Lori, as she unbuckled her seatbelt and made her way to the van's exit. "Wait, Lori," Lincoln said, as she reached down and grabbed Lori's hand. Lori stopped and turned to face Lincoln. "What's wrong, Link?" Lori asked with concern. Lincoln looked down on his lap and let out a small sigh. I'm scared, Lori," Lincoln explained. Lori wanted to ask her brother why she was scared, but it didn't take someone of Lisa's intelligence to figure out why Lincoln would be so scared. Who could blame him? Telling his family at what had happened to him was hard enough. Telling strangers, even if they're detectives, would terrify anyone. Hell, she was only there to help her brother through everything. But she was having a nervous feeling of having to go to a police station and potentially have to talk to an officer. Lori could tell that it was going to get easier for Lincoln to talk about what happened, the more people he would tell. But that didn't mean it wasn't still hard to talk about it, especially when the person you're telling is asking for much detail as possible, and questions that would make the most stoic person uncomfortable. This was another moment when Lori would need to put a step up and make sure her brother was going to be okay. He'd only made it this far, and she wasn't going to let him down or let him get his fear get the better of him. Lori took a deep breath and exhaled. "Lincoln, I know you're scared. I can see it. But that's okay. You're going to come out of this stronger of this. You'll prevent a monster from hurting anyone else," Lori explained. Lincoln looked up at Lori. "I know, it's just... Lincoln trailed off when he heard his mom from outside the van call for him and Lori. "Lori? Lincoln? You two coming? We need to meet the detectives," Rita exclaimed. Lori then poked her head out of the van. "Yeah, we're coming. Just need a minute," Lori explained. Lori then turned back to Lincoln. "It's just what, Lincoln?" Lori asked. Lincoln let out a sigh. "It's just, every time I talk about it, or if I'm by myself, it just keeps getting reminded of what happened. It hurts so much, Lori," Lincoln explained, as he looked down once again. Lori pulled her brother in for a hug. "This is just one of those moments I wish I could say, I understand, but I can't. I've never been in this situation, and literally believe you when you say it hurts, because I can see it in your eyes, Lincoln. I can't erase what happened. Everything knows I wish I could, but I can help you get through this. With every step, I'll be there for you, said Lori, as she hugged her brother tighter. Lincoln then pulled away from Lori's embrace. You promise? Lincoln asked, earnestly with tears swelling up in his eyes. Lori looked down at Lincoln and smiled. Yes, I always will, Lincoln, Lori responded. Lincoln gave his sister a small smile. Thank you, Lori. I love you, Lincoln said, as he embraced his sister once again. Lori returned her brother's embrace. I love you too, Lincoln, Lori responded. After the siblings ended their embrace, they both made their way out of the exit vehicles to meet up with the family and the rest of them. Thankfully, they hadn't entered the police station yet. The Loud parents met their oldest and their only male child with worried looks, but Lori was able to put their concerns at ease when she explained to them that Lincoln was still worried about everything. Everyone in attendance could understand his worry, and after Lori was able to put his worries a bit on ease in the van, they made their way to the police station, where they were known to be tasked to having to navigate where they needed to go to be the detectives. Once inside, Lynn Sr. noticed an officer at the front desk, filling out papers. He didn't normally like to bother others while they were working, but he was willing to break this rule given the circumstances. Lynn Sr. walked up to the desk sergeant. Hello, officer. My name's Lynn Loud. Me and my family are here to meet with Captain Hargery, but this is our first time here, and we're not sure where to go. Could you help us point us in the right direction, please? Lynn Sr. asked very sheepishly. The desk sergeant looked up from his paperwork. Hello, sir. Yes, I would be more than happy to direct you to the captain's office. The sergeant responded as he gestured his hand to his left. Just take the elevator over there on the first floor, and the captain's office will be straight ahead from there, the desk sergeant informed Lynn Sr. Lynn Sr. then looked where the sergeant was pointing. Thank you, sir, Lynn said with a smile. Lynn Sr. made his way back to his family and then led them to the elevator and then on to the Captain Hargery's office. Once the father explained the necessary steps to make it over to her office, the whole family made their way into the elevator to start up the next step of the hardest journey if any of them could have been on it. It was an easy task to get to the elevator, but getting on the elevator was another task, as that could need to be approached sooner than later. When they arrived at the elevator, they all noticed that it was on a smaller side. For all of them to make it up to the first floor, they would have to ride in two groups. One group of 6, Lincoln, Lucy, Lori, Luna, Rita, and Lola, and another group of 6, Lynn Sr., Lynn Jr., Lisa, Lenny, Luann, and Lily. And it was all too obvious, as no one would want to leave Lincoln's side, even if it was just only a few seconds. Lynn Jr. threw her hands up in frustration. What? Why should I have to wait? I'm not leaving Lincoln, Lynn Jr. insisted. Rita then looked at her athletic daughter. I know you don't want to leave your brother's side, sweetie, but we can't all fit. Just go wait up with your father and your sisters. You'll see your brother in a few seconds, Rita explained. Lenny then put her hand on Lynn's shoulder. Yeah, Lynn, we'll be back with Linky in no time, Lenny said with a warm smile. Lynn then crossed her arms and huffled. Fine, I'll wait, Lynn responded. Rita then looked down at Lynn. That's my girl, Rita said, as she made her way to the elevator. After taking one final check to make sure everyone, more importantly Lincoln, were all in the elevator, Rita pressed a button and with the free next to it, and they waited for the elevator to ascend to the third floor. The elevator ride didn't take long at all. They did have to make stops on the way to let everyone else on, which Rita was more than happy about, which meant they could get Lincoln help much faster. When the elevator finally stopped and the door opened, each occupant exited the elevator and allowed it to return to the bottom to retrieve the remaining members of the Loud family. Rita decided it would be much best to wait for the rest of the family to arrive before making their way to the captain's office. 6 people showing up for the same reason would be a lot to take in, but 6 more showing up for the same reason would definitely be enough to knock someone off their feet. Lori took the short waiting time to see if she could spot their destination. Lucky for her and her family, she had a very keen eye, and it didn't take her long to identify which office they were looking for. Lori looked over to her left. Let's see if I could find... Yep, there it is, Lori said silently to herself, as she located Captain Hargery's office. Lori tapped her mother on the shoulder. I found where we need to go, Mom, Lori informed her mother. Rita looked over to her eldest daughter. Good night, Lori. Now we just need to wait for you and your father and the rest of your sisters, said Rita. As if on cue, the elevator arrived with the remainder members of the Loud family, and when the doors opened, the rest of the family made a beeline for their brother. It may have been a few seconds, 2 minutes at the most, but that didn't stop any of Lincoln's sisters from wanting to get back to his side. Once both groups met back with each other, Rita informed her husband that Captain Hargery's office was only just a few feet away in front of them, that they should be able to get a move on. Lynn Sr. agreed and helped his wife shuffle all their children over to Captain Hargery's office. Rita wasn't kidding when she said it was only a few feet ahead of them. Her office may as well be connected to the elevator doors that were close. After making his way over to the front of the pack of his family, Lynn Sr. reached out and knocked on the captain's door to alert he and his family that he was stopped by Detective Giddish, who noticed a large family as he could. Hi, are you here to see Captain Hargery? Detective Giddish asked. Lynn Sr. turned his face to face Detective Giddish. Oh, yes, we are here to speak with the captain. My name's Lynn Loud, and that's my family. I called earlier about bringing my son to talk, Lynn Sr. informed the detective. Detective Giddish approached the father and stretched her hand out. Oh, yes, my captain told me you were on your way. I'm Detective Giddish, and it's nice to meet your family, Detective Giddish declared. Lynn Sr. then shook the detective's hand and shook it. It's good to meet you, Lynn Sr. responded as he retracted his hand. Detective Giddish looked at the window of Captain Hargery's office. It looks like she's almost finished with some paperwork she's working on. If you're okay in one of our interview rooms, I will let her know you're here, Detective Giddish informed Lynn Sr. Lynn Sr. gave the detective a small smile. That'll be great. Where do you want us to wait? Lynn Sr. asked. Detective Giddish led the family over to the department's larger interview room that was more comfortable than the others. She opened the door for the Loud family. Here we are. If you just wait in here, I will go inform my captain that you're here, Detective Giddish said. Thank you, Detective, Lynn Sr. said. No problem, and you can call me Kelly, Detective Giddish said with a smile. Lynn Sr. gave her a smile of his own. Thank you, Kelly, Lynn Sr. said, as he closed the door to the interview room. Detective Giddish turned around and quickly made her way to the captain's office. Once she arrived, she knocked on the door, and when she looked at the window, she noticed that Captain Hargery motioned for her to come in. When Detective Giddish opened the door to the captain's office, she had a little bit of a shocked look on her face. She may have only been spoken to the father, but the size of the family left a lasting on the impression of the detective. She's seen victims bring family members or friends with them, but never anything on that scale. She was just glad that they had a room big enough for them to seat them all in. However, this did not go unnoticed by the captain. Captain Hargery then lowered her glasses. Everything okay, Kelly? The captain inquired. Yeah, Mr. Lynn Loud is here. He called you earlier about bringing his son to file a report. I know you said the family was larger, but I wasn't expecting that many people, Detective Giddish explained. Captain Hargery then stood up from her desk. Okay, good. I was hoping they'd get here soon. Father sounded really worried on the phone. And how many exactly that many? Captain Hargery inquired. Detective Giddish motioned over to one-way mirror of the captain's office. I lost count, Captain, Detective Giddish said, as she pulled up the blinds to the interview room. Captain Hargery then walked over to the mirror and began to count. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 11. We were not kidding, Kelly, the captain responded. I don't think I've ever seen a family this huge since the Bakers, Captain, Detective Giddish pointed out. I think you're right, and it can be overwhelming, but we got justice for their daughter, and we'll get justice on their son and brother. And it's just going to be justice for their one and only son and brother, Captain Hargery pointed out. Detective Giddish nodded and to her captain. Let's help this kid and lock up that monster cap, Detective Giddish responded. Oh, and Captain, Detective Giddish inquired. What's up, Kelly? Captain Hargery asked. The family seems to be really close, and I know it's unorthodox, but maybe you could try talking to the boy with everyone here. I know we generally do a one-on-one or two with us both, but I get the feeling that the sisters would want to be with their brother, Detective Giddish explained. Captain Hargery then pondered for a moment. Not our normal protocol, but I think it's worth a shot, Captain Hargery expressed. Detective Giddish gave her captain a determined smile. Let's get to work then, Cap, Detective Giddish said. Both the detective and captain exited out of their office and made their way to the interview room to meet with the Loud family. Once they made it to the door, Detective Giddish opened the door for Captain Hargery, and Captain Hargery entered the room and greeted the Loud family. Hello, I am Captain Hargery. You could call me Mariska. And you have already met Detective Giddish? The captain addressed. Rita looked up at the captain. Hello, Mariska. Rita tried to respond before being cut off by the Loud sisters, and younger and older. Are you going to help my brother? Lana asked earnestly. Please help Linky, Lenny pleaded. If you don't, I'll arrest her. I'll handle it myself, Lynn chimed in. I normally have a pun in this stressful situation, but seriously, can you please help our brother? Luann asked. She's really hurt him, Cap, Lola informed. Lincoln's sad, Lily said. Lynn Sr. stood up. Okay, everyone, stop, Lori commanded. Everyone then turned to see the father of the Loud family. We aren't getting Lincoln help this way. We can't interrupt each other, and we can't bombard the detectives with questions. We need to let them do their job, Lynn Sr. explained. Everyone sat down there, and there was a large sofa and a few chairs in the interview room. Added comfort, Lynn Sr. continued. I'm sorry about that, Captain. These are my daughters, my son's older and younger sisters. They are very worried about their brother, Lynn Sr. explained. Captain Hargery then took a seat nearby the table. That's all right, and it's perfectly normal for siblings to worry about one or another and want to help. And to answer your question, yes, we will be doing everything we can to help your brother, Captain Hargery informed Loud sisters. Captain Hargery then looked over to the other male in the room. Okay, and since I've already met your father, I believe you are the brother your sisters are speaking of, Detective Hargery said. Lincoln looked up to the captain. Oh, yes, that's me, Lincoln responded. Would you be okay telling me your name? Captain Hargery asked. Oh, yeah, it's... Lincoln tried to finish before he was being cut off by his sister Lola. Lola then stood on the couch. His name's Lincoln. He's very smart. He likes to be savvy, and he's the best big brother in the whole world. So please help him, Lola pleaded with the captain. Lola, Rita snapped at her daughter. You can't just jump in like that. I know you want to help your brother, but you need to let him answer, Rita said as she scolded her daughter. Lola's face went red with embarrassment, but then she sat back down. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Lincoln. I'm sorry, Captain Hargery, Lola apologized. Captain Hargery then gave her sister a soft smile. That's quite all right, sweetie. I can see that you want to help your brother, and you have by telling me his name. Thank you for that. But for now, do you think you could let your brother answer, please? Captain Hargery asked Lola nicely. Lola looked up and gave the captain a smile. Yes, ma'am, Lola answered honestly. Captain Hargery nodded to Lola and turned her attention back to Lincoln. So, Lincoln, your dad told me that something happened to you at school yesterday. Would you be okay with telling me and Detective Giddish about what happened? Captain Hargery asked Lincoln. Lincoln then looked back up at the captain. It was at the end of the day, and my teacher told me that I need to stay after class to retake the quiz. She said that I didn't do so well, so I texted my older sister Lori and asked if she could pick me up later. Lincoln began to tell the captain. Captain Hargery began writing down the information was being given. Okay, so can you tell me what happened after you messaged your sister? Captain Hargery asked. Lincoln shook his head, yes. I sat down my test and my teacher was giving me the new quiz to take. And I started taking the quiz and everything was going smoothly. But when it was almost done, my teacher, Lincoln, trailed off. Captain Hargery looked up from her notepad and heard Lincoln stop giving his statement. She could see recounting the event that was hurting him, physically, mentally, and emotionally. She and Detective Giddish had seen this numerous times over the years. When someone gets taken advantage of, they almost shut down and try to push all of their pain away so they didn't have to feel it. After assessing what she could from Lincoln, mostly physical movements and breathing patterns, she noticed that she wasn't completely closed off from his trauma. It appeared as if his whole family already knew, but he wasn't as open about it as she hoped it. The captain leaned forward to the chair. "Hey, Lincoln," the captain asked. Lincoln looked back up with tears filling his eyes. "Yes, ma'am?" Lincoln asked. "I can see that you're hurting, and I am very sorry the way you suffered the way you did. I wish you didn't, and I hope you never have to go through something like this again. I've been doing this for a long time, and the one thing I have noticed that victims do is blame themselves, and makes it harder for them to open up about what happened. I think you might be just doing that, are you?" the captain asked. Lincoln shook his head. "Yes. Yes, ma'am," Lincoln admitted. Captain Hardry then gave Lincoln a warm smile. "I want you to know that you haven't done anything wrong, and this is not your fault. The person who did this to you, they're the ones at fault. This was someone you trusted, and they hurt you in one of the worst ways possible, and that makes them even hurt more. But if you want to believe when I say this, none of this is your fault," the captain explained. Lincoln wiped his eyes. "That's what my sisters told me," Lincoln responded. Captain Hardry gave Lincoln another smile. "Your sisters are right, and they must be very smart, and they love you a lot. In fact, I know they love you a lot. I could see it when I see all of you together, and that I can also see that everyone in here wants to help you, Lincoln," Captain Hardry observed. Lincoln then looked up to his left and right. He gave a small smile when he noticed each of his family members. "Yeah, I see, Eve, I think what you mean," Lincoln responded. Detective Giddish stepped forward. "Everyone here wants to help get justice for you, Lincoln. You suffered enough, and it's time you start healing," Detective Giddish exclaimed. Lucy then popped next to Detective Giddish, causing her detective to jump. "Yes, dear brother, don't let this darkness devour you and send you to the abyss of torture," Lucy said. Detective Giddish took a breath. "Does that happen a lot?" the detective asked the Loud family. Lori let out a small chuckle. "Only all the time," Lori explained. Lincoln then looked up at Captain Hardry. "Okay, I think I'm ready," Lincoln expressed. Captain Hardry picked up her pen. "Okay, let's get started," Captain Hardry said, very determined. The next hour was filled by nothing but horrors of what Lincoln's teacher had subjected him to do the previous day. Lincoln's parents and his sisters had already heard of what happened, some multiple times by now, but that didn't make it easier to process. Captain Hardry and Detective Giddish had been doing this job for years now, but it still doesn't make it any easier to hear what they were being told. Neither of them has ever understood or ever will what could possibly possess someone to do something like this to anyone or any child. But luckily for the survivors, the two best detectives were always going to make sure that they get justice. It wasn't an easy talk, but Lincoln was able to recount the events days prior without leaving any crucial detail. Even going through something so horrible, Lincoln was able to recount the entire event with confidence. Captain Hardry even put her pen and then looked at Lincoln. "Well, Lincoln, thank you for trusting us enough to tell us about what happened. You have given us great information, and we promise you and your family that we'll do whatever we can to bring your teacher to justice," Captain Hardry assured. Lincoln gave the captain a hopeful smile. "Thank you, Captain Hardry, and you too, Detective Giddish." Lincoln thanked both the officers. Detective Giddish stepped forward and crouched down to meet Lincoln's eye level. "You're welcome, Lincoln," Detective Giddish responded as she pulled out a card from her pocket. "This is my card. If something like this you remember something, or your teacher, or someone else tries to do anything to you, just give me a call," Detective Giddish said. Lincoln took the card from Detective Giddish. "Thank you. I will, I promise," Lincoln responded. "You're welcome, Lincoln," Detective Giddish said as she stood up and walked over to her captain. Captain Hardry stood up. "Well, Mr. and Mrs. Loud, thank you for bringing Lincoln in and helping him, and thank you for your statement. Lincoln, you have helped us so much," Captain Hardry said. Rita stood up. "And thank you, Captain, for helping us. I don't think how much we can appreciate your time," Rita said. "It's what we're here for," Captain Hardry reassured Rita. Lynn Senior then stepped forward. "We do appreciate everything you've done so far. We should probably get going now. You probably have a full day ahead of you. Let's go, gang, so the detectives can get to work," Lynn Senior said as he and his family made their way to the door to go back home. Detective Kiddish opened the door for the Loud family. "Thank you again. We'll be doing everything we can to help Lincoln," Detective Kiddish reassured the Loud family once again. Captain Hardry pulled out one of her cards from her pocket. "And please take my card in case if something comes up," Captain Hardry said. Rita retrieved the card from the captain and stowed it in her purse. "Thank you both," Rita said. And with that, the Loud family exited the interview room and made their way to the elevator to begin their short trip back home, where most of the Loud children would head back to sleep when they arrived home. Everyone was drained mentally, physically, and emotionally, and it had been an early day, and no one had anticipation on learning that Lincoln had been abused by someone that was supposed to look out for him. This wasn't going to be an easy task for everyone involved, but it was going to be one where Lincoln would be stronger at the end of it all, facing his accuser, regaining his sense of safety, and understanding that nothing happened was his fault. It was a long journey, but it was worth the having. Detective Giddish shut the door as soon as the Loud family left. "That poor kid," Detective Giddish said sympathetically. Captain Hardry let out a sigh. "And this never gets easier. You get cases that are harder than ones," Captain Hardry said. Detective Giddish gave her captain a determined look. "Let's get her cap," Detective Giddish said. "Couldn't agree more with you, Kelly," Captain Hardry responded. Lincoln was standing next to Luna, waiting for the elevator to arrive to bring them back to the ground floor of the police station, when he remembered something important. "Hey, Luna," Lincoln said to get his older sister's attention. Luna then looked down at her brother. "What's up, Link?" Luna asked. Lincoln gave Luna a nervous look. "I just remember the concert's tonight, and I had to say this, but I don't think I'm up for..." Lincoln began to say, before Luna waved him off. "Don't worry about it, bro. We're going to be focused on helping you out. We can go another time," Luna assured her brother. "You sure, Luna? You spent a lot of money on the tickets," Lincoln pointed out. Luna crouched down and put her hands on Lincoln's shoulders. "That doesn't matter. The only thing matters is you, baby bro," Luna said. Lincoln embraced Luna. "I love you, Luna," Lincoln said. Luna returned her brother's embrace. "I love you too," Luna said.